one more time. Before I get into this video debunking the documentary, I do want to point out that I'm not going against what I said before. Of course, I'm not going to say that there is not some credibility. As I said in my previous video, the credibility to me in a documentary is the fact that Wade's tears in the last half hour when he broke down are real. I'm very good at body language, and I can tell you that his tears are real. However, just because they're real doesn't mean I'm not going to point out all the inconsistencies in the documentary. Second thing I want to point out is, I did delete the video, "Fuck You, Wade Robson." That is the video clip of me that appears in the documentary. At first I was not going to delete it, and I didn't. I only deleted it yesterday. The reason is because I'm guessing that as more people viewed it, more people were trying to look up the video. I guess they're like, oh, this guy said "fuck you, Wade Robson." I'll type that into YouTube and find it. And of course it did, because that's the title of the video too. And the video got like 500 views in one day. And I thought, okay, so people are now going to come here. They're going to watch this video. They're going to take this one video and the one clip from the video and say, this is who Matt is. And I didn't want that type of appearance on me because it's not even accurate. What is used in the movie is a 10-second clip from a 5-minute video out of over 50 videos. And out of all my videos, that video, I can admit, that video is the one where I spoke the least amount of facts and did the most amount of swearing. So if people watch that, they're going to get this perception of me that I'm not factual and I'm a fanatic who just swears and gets angry. Because that is kind of how I acted in the video. Now, why did I act that way in that video? It's because I had been making Wade Robson videos for a long time up until that point and after. And I was really angry that day because it was around the time when Wade tried to blame his molestation on Michael Jackson's father, Joseph, which I thought was a really cheap shot. And then that particular video is when TMZ followed Wade to the airport, and he kept being like, oh, I feel liberated, and saying stuff like that, which pissed me off as well. And I was just really angry in that video, and instead of putting out facts, I was just kind of like swearing at him. Out of all my videos against Wade, that's the only video where I'm not showing facts. So for people to get an extremely skewed concept of who I am from an out-of-context clip was out of the question for me. I did not delete it because I'm afraid of something. I'm afraid of nothing. I just didn't want my character, again, to be manipulated by an out-of-context clip on a video that I'm not even proud of myself. That's why I deleted the video. But it's not much of a loss because you can always still see that beautiful 10-second clip of me in the movie for whatever reason. And I just explained to you what the video is. I'm not denying that I said "fuck you." Of course I did. It's in the movie. How can I deny that? And I wouldn't anyway, even if it wasn't in the movie. But the video is not good. And I have many other videos against Wade, over 30, and they all show facts except for that one. So of course, that's the video that Dan picks of me, which is completely manipulated and totally out of context to further his narrative. Before we get into the facts, I wanted to start off with this screenshot right here where Wade claims in a 2016 deposition that he is a master of deception. I want to begin by pointing out info that a lot of people aren't aware of. After Dan Reed was interviewed by a lot of people, including Piers Morgan, and getting called out a million times for his million contradictions in his documentary, Dan Reed actually edited the documentary down to omit these contradictions. And now the BBC version of the documentary went from 4 hours long to just 3 hours and 15 minutes. Now, if the documentary was so flawless in terms of facts and no contradictions, why did you need to remove over 45 minutes from it? Dan, you know that this documentary is full of shit. One part in particular that was removed was when Wade's wife Amanda stated she did not know how to help Wade because she didn't know anything about sexual abuse. This was removed because on Wade's charity page, she claimed to be a sex abuse victim herself. But this doesn't fit with her not knowing how to help Wade. So this was removed from his charity page, and also removed from future airings of the documentary. Also, Dan, aside from the fact that you put me in this documentary completely out of context on a 6-year-old video where I said fuck you 4 times in a row, and ignored the fact that it's a 5-minute full video and tried to depict me as an MJ fanatic, despite my entire channel contradicting this belief, I watched a bunch of interviews with him. And at first, he seemed professional, well-spoken, answering questions, not stuttering, etc. And it's because of this that I gave him some credit in terms of his credibility. But this flew out the window when he said that even though MJ is not here to defend himself, I gave him a chance in the documentary to make it fair. I showed clips of him defending himself, as well as his lawyers. What the hell are you talking about, Dan? You mean you showed about 60 seconds of MJ defending himself, and 3 hours and 59 minutes of Wade talking about being sodomized. Don't you dare tell me this is 50-50, Dan. During Oprah Winfrey's interview with Wade, James, and Dan, Oprah says, "When did you start to think of it as abuse?" James Safechuck says, "It wasn't until Wade came out." These are Jimmy's exact words to Oprah, but according to Leaving Neverland, he said, "Michael is not a good guy" to his mom, Stephanie Safechuck, back in 2005, which indicated to his mom that he had been abused. But he didn't have the ability to actually come out until 2013, while in therapy. Surely, back in 2005, he knew it was abuse. Otherwise, he couldn't have said he's not a good guy to his mom. But this is contradicted by what he said to Oprah, because Oprah didn't ask when he had his realization. She asked when he thought of it as abuse, and he said when Wade came out, which is long after 2005. And lastly, the truth is that James didn't come out until he was contacted by Wade's legal team. According to Leaving Neverland, Wade claims that MJ begged him to testify. Meanwhile, according to Tom Mesereau and Scott Ross, Wade actually volunteered to testify. Oprah asked Wade if he defended MJ in 2005 because he loved him, or because he didn't know the abuse was bad. And Wade says he didn't think about it at the time, and he couldn't even dare to question MJ. This is questionable. Supposedly MJ begged and manipulated Wade into defending him, but why would he need to do this if Wade already considered him a perfect human being, despite the abuse? Remember, even if Wade loved him and didn't consider the sexual acts as wrong, he would have still mentioned them on the stand, but described them as positive. The fact that he didn't mention these sexual acts at all means Wade knew they were wrong, assuming they were real. When Wade testified for several hours in court in 2005, as MJ's first defendant by the way, Wade says he only did it because MJ begged him to defend him in court, which he can't do by the way. The witnesses are chosen by the judge, but we'll just pass by that for now. And manipulated Wade into lying for him while on the stand. If this is true, that would mean Wade knew he was doing something wrong with him on the stand, and would have felt horrible about going against Gavin. However, when Wade left the courtroom, he didn't seem sad or have his head down about the horrible thing he did to Gavin by defending a child molester. In fact, he gave a huge smile and a peace sign to the camera. This does not seem like the reaction of a man who just went against a fellow victim. One of the big claims in this documentary that the anti-MJ people are latching onto is that Wade and James were not paid for this documentary, and that automatically proves that they're telling the truth. Yes, they're not being paid by Dan or HBO, but they're most likely being paid by Oprah or various other interviews they're doing, or the final step, of course, being that they want $1.5 billion from MJ's estate. So because of that, your money argument is invalid. Michael Jackson was married to Lisa Marie Presley from 1994 to 1996, and this was supposedly during the time that Wade was being molested by MJ literally every single night. Where the hell was Lisa during these nights if this is true? Lisa says herself that her marriage with him was very real and she never saw anything. And she's a very outspoken person who has no fear of telling any negative truth about MJ. Did you also notice through this documentary, Wade and James put it across that MJ was a serial rapist who spent every waking second with these two, molesting them, molesting others, fucking around at Neverland, supposedly never working, dancing, writing music, going to meetings, going to the studio, literally nothing? Do they really think that MJ didn't have to leave sometimes to, work? This is the most amazing part, really. The audience of this documentary has actually been convinced that MJ no longer had a music career, and instead spent years at Neverland just molesting kids every single night of every single day, in every single corner of Neverland, while never being caught by one single staff member or security camera. Speaking of cameras, Leaving Neverland claims that all forms of cameras and phones had to be left at the Neverland gates, insinuating that no cameras, aside from security cameras, are at the ranch. If this is true, then why is there a ton of footage of MJ and kids playing at both his house and the ranch overall? Although Wade realized his abuse in 2013, he had his nervous breakdown and was in therapy since 2012. Meanwhile, there's video clips of Wade doing a dance class in 2012 to MJ's song Unbreakable. James Safechuck alleges that the abuse began in June 1988 on the Bad Tour in Paris and continued at the 89 Grammys in New York. The problem? Michael did not attend the 89 Grammys, and the event wasn't even in New York. MJ did perform at the 1988 Grammys in March. That's the performance of The Way You Make Me Feel in Man in the Mirror. Therefore, the Grammys happened before the Bad Tour Paris leg. So unless Jackson had a time machine, he cannot remember ongoing abuse at the Grammys. Wade claimed that he was unable to work in the entertainment industry in any capacity from the time of realizing the abuse, 2013, until 2017. Yet a quick search will reveal many projects he was involved with during the time, including running his own dance workshops. James claims that MJ gave him the Thriller jacket. Meanwhile, designer Dennis Tompkins actually kept it and auctioned it for $1.8 million in 2011. Now, side note, I just want to point out that we're talking about the official Thriller jacket here from the music video, but then again, Michael had more than one. For all we know, he could have given him the one he used on tour. It was the one that was white and black. He also wore a red and black one on Bucharest 1996, which is not the same red one from the official music video. So, although this could be a lie, we should also make sure that it's not one of the other Thriller jackets, because Michael did have more than one. For the sake of facts, we have to point that out. James Safechuck also claims that Harrison Ford gave him the bullwhip from the Indiana Jones movies. However, only one whip was actually used for the trilogy, and it was given to the Institute of Archaeology in London in 1990, not to James Safechuck. James Safechuck claims he honeymooned with MJ at Euro Disney in 1988, despite the fact that Euro Disney wasn't even opening until 1992. And 1992 is during the time that James claims MJ wasn't speaking to him anymore. Which is also a lie because James can be seen in photos during the History era in 1995. Which also contradicts that MJ only likes these special friends until a certain age, because James would have been about 17 years old during the History era. Wade claims that when MJ stopped contacting him, it's because Wade was replaced with MJ's new special friend, Macaulay Culkin. However, Wade saying this directly debunks the concept of the special friend, because everyone from Macaulay Culkin to Brett Barnes to Corey Feldman all deny, to this day, that anything ever happened to them. So, if Wade was no longer the special friend and it's obviously not Macaulay, then who? James Safechuck claims in Leaving Neverland that MJ begged him to testify, and that he had perjured himself by signing a declaration during the Chandler case that nothing had happened. Despite the fact that the private investigator, Scott Ross, claims that James was not only never asked to testify, but he was also a non-entity. James claims that MJ begged him to testify in 2005 while the case was already ongoing, despite the fact that 9 months before the judge had already ruled he wouldn't be able to. And I know I made this point several times, but I feel I need to say it again. Why in the name of fuck would MJ want, not one, but two of his own victims to take the stand? Even if MJ had manipulated both of them into defending him no matter what, Do you have any idea how hard it is being on the witness stand? After being cross-examined, being asked questions for hours on end by both the prosecution and the defense, eventually anyone is going to break down and admit the truth. In closing, this documentary is extremely one-sided. We heard nothing from Corey Feldman, Brett Barnes, Macaulay Culkin, MJ's friends, families, co-workers, Neverland staff, Wade or James's therapist, the jewelry store owner who sold the rings that James Safechuck has, Taj Jackson, or even Brandy Jackson, who is MJ's niece, that Wade dated at the same time as being abused, mind you. And keep in mind, this completely throws off the narrative in the documentary that MJ wanted Wade all for himself and that MJ tried to teach Wade to hate women. So MJ taught Wade to hate women, but also set up Wade with his own niece while molesting him at the same time? That would be insane if it was true. At this point, as I said, the only credibility I give this documentary is the fact that Wade broke down into tears in the last half hour. But there's still a couple things I think should happen in order to test the validity of the claims from Wade and James in it. The first one is I think they should both do a polygraph test. Now, polygraph tests are not 100%. Apparently they're like 90, but 90 is still very good. On top of that, a polygraph test, although inaccurate, is still better than nothing at all. And third, you can test them several times. I think they should both do the polygraph test maybe 3, 4, or even 5 times a week apart. Polygraph test, a week, another one, a week, another one. And if all 5 tests are consistent, then we can safely say that they're probably telling the truth. And the second thing that could be proven is James Safechuck's rings. He claims MJ gave him these rings, so can we check fingerprints? I'm sure those rings still have his fingerprints on them, so why not go to the Santa Barbara County Courthouse? MJ's fingerprints will still be on record, and check if they match what's on those rings. But I know for a fact James won't get that done. Also, this brings up another question. If you kept the rings, why didn't you keep the vows that you supposedly made up with MJ? You could have presented those vows in the documentary. I guess it's because you didn't actually write any. But on top of that, where are the vows that MJ wrote? Do you people understand that Michael Jackson was a borderline hoarder, okay? He was one of the messiest people in the world, as most creative people are. Michael Jackson kept every single scrap of paper short of the paper he used to wipe his ass with, okay? There were notes all over his house. Papers with song lyrics on it, phone numbers, notes, fan shit, notes that he wrote to other people. There were notes and papers all over his fucking house. Surely if he actually did write down vows and gave them to James, or James wrote down his vows and gave them to Michael, one of their papers would be somewhere in his house under his gigantic piles of crap and papers and notes. You're telling me that when his house was raided and all these little notes were found, from song lyric notes to all kinds of different notes, not one incriminating note, including the vows paper, was not found. Chances are it was simply never written. Anyway, those are all the facts I was able to discover that discredit the documentary. I want people, from Michael Jackson fans to Michael Jackson haters, to take this video seriously and think about these contradictions and lies. They are important no matter who you are. And lastly, I will not say that I'm going to stop Michael Jackson videos entirely, because I did make a promise on my Patreon that if people donate to Patreon, they can make video requests, including Michael Jackson video requests. So if I actually do get a patron who makes a Michael Jackson video request, I will do it. But I'm considering this the end because this is the end of the current legacy. Everything from this point on will be based on patron requests, and they're just kind of like side videos that are done to satisfy my patrons. But as far as the regular, Michael Jackson legacy of my channel, this is it. I want to say goodbye to everybody, if you're only here for Michael Jackson, and I've done everything in my power to defend him as best I could for the last 13 years. And before we say bye, we have a special guest who wants to say something. This is Robin, the other girl who was used without her consent in the documentary by Dan Reed. Take it away, Robin.
Hey everybody, it's your girl Lady Robin. The problems that a lot of people, including yours truly, have with the documentary, supposed documentary, is that it's very one-sided, and it only gives them speaking about it. It doesn't give anybody else on Michael's side speaking for him a lot. And it also does not have Michael himself, because once again, the man has been dead for 10 years. Almost 10 years. He cannot defend himself. He cannot come out and say, this isn't right, they're lying. He can't do any of that. He can't speak anymore. So now we have to speak for him. And it just seems a little bit unfair that they would do this now that he's been dead for almost a decade. It hurts his family. It hurts his mother. It hurts his children. It hurts his siblings. It hurts all his other family members. It hurts his friends. It hurts his fans, including yours truly, once again. And it just all around doesn't make any sense. The only thing that can be about it is about money. They have said that we're doing this to heal and to give a voice to other victims, which is understandable because child molestation and all types of sexual abuse is no joke. It's no game. It's not right. No matter who does it, whoever does it, be it the top person in the world all the way down to the Joe Schmo next door, should be thrown under the jail. But since it was proven that Michael did nothing wrong, then it should have been just dropped and let go. But they said that they wanted to heal. And as I said in my previous video, if they really wanted to heal, they could have done it in private. They didn't have to come out and say this. But I don't think they are victims of Michael Jackson, period. The director, Dan Reed, never asked anybody on Michael's side to be in this documentary and to speak for him because, and he has been quoted as saying, he didn't want their side to interrupt with the story that he was trying to tell. Well, look, I did go to journalism school. I do have a degree in magazine journalism, maybe not in film, but what little bit that I did study with journalism, you have to present all sides of the story, not just one side. So how can you call this a documentary when you only have one side and not the other? My part in leaving Neverland. First, I just want to say first and foremost, I did not give my consent to this, to be in this film. I was not even contacted about it. I knew nothing about it until one of my friends in Twitter told me that they had used our videos, our YouTube videos, for this movie. So I just want to say first and foremost, I knew nothing about this, and I was really shocked and flabbergasted when I saw myself. I have mixed feelings about this because I wasn't going to look at this. I wasn't going to look at this at all.
We didn't face the facts. We didn't deal with reality. I just find very, very suspicious.
The story just keeps changing. His story keeps changing.
I thank Dan Reed in a weird way for putting me in it. And I think this was the best and possibly worst thing that you could have done, because now you're going to have me and a lot of other people coming out and saying what we feel about this. And it's blowing up big time. A lot is coming out. A lot is coming out about Wade. A lot is coming out about Jimmy. A lot is coming out. There's a lot of people going in on Oprah. It's a mess. So join me on my channel a little bit later. It's Robynsegg, and thank you very much. Have a good day. Peace, love, and hair grease, and please just be kind to one another. That's all I can ask. Just a little bit. Be kind to one another. Thank you. Bye.